Hey everyone, you are listening to the Simple Electronics podcast. I'm your host, Simple Electronics, and with me today I have a very special guest, Joe, the 3D printing professor. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. It's a bit late for me here, but that should just mean that my speech will be a little bit more, unfettered. Let's just say.
No, it's kind of late for me as well. I appreciate you accommodating me at this late hour for it. But of course, who knows when people are listening to it? They're on their commute to work in the morning or something.
Yeah, here's hoping that the plan for me launching the episodes on Thursdays on YouTube and Fridays on the wider release is so that people can, start their Fridays at the end of the week with a podcast if they enjoy it. And it just sort of makes me happy that some people might actually enjoy it in that way. So here's hoping.
Yeah, I started listening to your podcast on my podcast feed on my commute. So I really enjoyed the past couple of episodes that you had. And who was the guy from Germany who you had there? His name originally made me think it was Islander, but starts with an M, and I can't remember any more than that right now.
Yeah, Mattu from Mattu Makes.
That's right. And he's got some fantastic videos. In fact, his camera rig, he's making a three-dimensional movement system for his camera rig. And I immediately was like, I wonder if we could put a hot end on that.
Man, you could put a hot end on anything. That's the nice part about 3D printing is that it's evolved so much. Like, I don't know if you caught the podcast with Billy Rubin and myself, but I was imagining, or I was dreaming of a 3D printer since high school, which would be like 2004 or 5-ish. And back then, the 3D printing kits were like, I don't know, they were like $40,000, or they had the laser types that shot lasers through like a gel.
Yeah. In fact, the original 3D printer was a light curing laser 3D printer created by Chuck Hull way back in the 70s. So that actually is the original technology. Everybody thinks of FDM or FFF technology when they think of 3D printing, but Chuck Hull gets claim on the first, and it was that type. It was a light curing resin.
That's really interesting, actually, and I think that makes sense because they've been using UV curing resins, like paints, basically, for a very long time. So I can see how they can jump from one to the other pretty easily.
Yeah, it was an easy thing for him to get a hold of. What's interesting, though, is nowadays they're all doing it with an LCD screen that they're shining lights through so they can cure a whole layer at a time. Chuck Hull's original design just had a UV laser pointed at a mirror, and he angled the mirror to draw it. It used a light curing technology, but with an FDM-like tool path, which I think is fascinating.
That is fascinating. And actually, we've jumped right into this, and possibly my listeners don't know who you are. So I would love to continue this, but can you tell everyone sort of who you are and what you do, and then we'll get right back on track?
Yeah, my name is Joe. I'm the 3D printing professor. I make YouTube videos about 3D printing, kind of with an educational slant, kind of do 3D printing reviews as well whenever I can. And to help pay the bills once a year or so, I run a model-a-thon Kickstarter where I just sit down and make 3D models of stuff with a particular theme, just kind of building up the library of 3D printable models that are out there. And I do that as much as people throw money at me. And then deliver them a whole library of prints, more than they'll probably ever actually print. But it's a fun time.
Yeah. So you're referring to the print-a-blocks, or is it just print-a-block singular?
Okay. I am not a mega corporation out there that's going to get hung up on the pluralization of a brand name. You can call it blocks. You can call it block. I don't care.
Okay, so print a block. Now, like, I obviously went onto your Kickstarter, as the viewers should, at least to check it out. If not, to throw $1 or $10 or whatever into the pile. And the links are in the description on the thumbnail and in the show notes if you're listening on a podcast service. But I'm looking, and your image is as of a box of print-a-block.
Yes.
Is this a physical product, or is this something that people are going to have to print themselves?
Well, if you take a look at the side of the box, it indicates how many pieces are in that box, and it's infinite. Because no, it's not a physical item. You need to have a 3D printer to print these models, but you can print as many of these models as you want. You are the manufacturer. And so yeah, the box is kind of to kind of pay homage to the fact that this is something that is being manufactured, but it's being manufactured in your home. And so no, I'm not selling actual physical prints, and I hope I have all over the Kickstarter. This is not actual physical prints. It's just for the STL files. But you get a whole pile of STL files at the end. And what I learned, so this is actually the 4th Kickstarter that I've run. This is the 5th Kickstarter that I've run. So the first one that I ran was for the Royal Game of Ur. A little while ago, Tom Scott made a video about this ancient game, the first known board game, and he played it, and it was a thing, and it got popular, and I was like, well, I could 3D print those. So I made a Kickstarter where I would 3D print for people the Royal Game of Ur. So I was delivering physical deliverables in that one, and I just released the files for free because it's what I do at the time. And then the second one, I had a buddy of mine recommend, well, why don't you just make 3D models and give people the 3D models, and then you don't have to deliver anything. And I was like, ooh, that's a really good idea. And so I made dinosaurs. And the low poly dino Kickstarter is the one that I'm always trying to recapture the magic of, because that was a absolutely magical experience, and I loved it. And I don't know if I've ever been able to recapture that in any of my later Kickstarters, but that's the one that I'm always going for. Unfortunately, I feel like I can't do more low poly dinos, because I feel like I've scraped the bottom of that particular well of ideas. I literally cannot think of more than 2 dinosaurs that I haven't done in that Kickstarter. There were 80 dinosaurs that were released as part of that Kickstarter. Backers definitely got their money's worth. And then, and then I did one. So after low poly dinos, I was like, let's do something, because low poly dinos are boy toys, really. And I was like, let's do something that's a little bit more for everybody and a little bit cuter and maybe skews a little bit younger. And I did chibi malls, which were these cute little animals. And that Kickstarter, I thought at the time did not do very well. It did okay, but a lot of people didn't get the idea of it. I still love chibi malls, and I want to revisit it, and I want to continue developing it in the future, and I want to do an animated series with it and all kinds of stuff. But I said, okay, well, let's go back to the boy toys. Let's go the boyest boy toy at the time that I could think of. And I had just recently got annoyed at a large mega corporation who was selling interlocking building blocks for deleting a couple of my 3D print models on Thingiverse because they dared to be adjacent to their interlocking building blocks. I wasn't copying, I'm just going to say it, I wasn't copying Legos, but I was making parts that would interact with Legos, and they told Thingiverse to delete them, and I was like, well, fine, I'm going to make something better than Legos. And that became Print-a-Blocks, and I was like, cool, I'm going to keep developing these, and we're going to make a Kickstarter, and we're going to make accessories, and we're going to do robots and tanks and guns and boy toys all over the place. And so that was Print-a-Block Mechs, and that one did very well, and I really enjoyed that one. And I've been wanting to return to it. Well, right after that, the world kind of took a nosedive.
Interesting. I haven't noticed.
Yeah, no, I you might have heard about it if you are not dead. No, it's been a heck of a year. And as a result of that, um, nothing happened for a year on that. Actually, right at the end of the Printer Block Mex Kickstarter, I actually told people, hey, listen, life's going to crap right now. I mean, it literally ended in March as everything was going downhill. And I said, listen, if anybody wants a refund, just let me know. No questions asked. I'm not going to care. You can keep the blocks, but there's a good chance that right now is not the time for me to say, here, pay me money for frivolous toys and stuff like that. But it's been a year. Things are starting to come out of it. And I've been really wanting to get back to printer blocks. So I did. And I'm running another Kickstarter. And this time I'm doing it with animals and beasts and a lot more articulation in the robots that we're doing on this one. They're still robots, but they're, animal-y robots. And we've got, the first two were a lion and a snail. We have a dragon, a T-Rex, a kangaroo, and an ostrich at this point. And I'm working on a shark.
Nice. What would you say is the philosophy of the Print-A-Block? Because I'm looking at it and it's very open. It's very creative. Is there any driving principles behind Print-A-Blocks?
Stick it to the man. No. The driving principle behind it is just basically fulfilling the promise of 3D printing. When we first started with 3D printing, it was like you're going to make all these things that you want in the home, and you're not going to be beholden to any manufacturer or anything like that. You get to be the manufacturer. And largely, 3D printing has fulfilled that, but it also hasn't. And so I wanted to make something that, first of all, was cool. And Print-A-Blocks can build in any direction. You got full 3D building with these. So it's great for kit bashing. It's great for prototyping. It's great for construction. But it's also something that is uniquely 3D printable. You could not manufacture this with injection molding. There's too many internal factors in it. It just wouldn't work. So it's a uniquely 3D printing toy that you manufacture in your home. And if you want 10 of them, there's nothing to stop you from making 10 or 20 or 100 of them.
And also I'm looking at the joint design, and it's not quite what we're used to in the sort of the pins and holes type thing. There are holes and there are pins, but I guess what was the process of making these things 3D printable?
So the idea of pins and holes has been around since the beginning of 3D printing. There was an old set of blocks called the Tony Buser. Tony Buser? I can't remember. T Buser, I think. On Thingiverse, you can see these pins. They inspired me a long time ago. But the problem that I saw with them is that they were very orientation dependent. They kind of would work standing up. They definitely would work laying down. But if you print them standing up and you're going against the layer lines with the part that flexes into the hole and then pops open to snap it inside, because it was essentially a shaped cylinder with a slit down the middle so it could flex inside just a little bit. Well, that worked great when it was sitting down, but when you stood it up, the layers were going with the flex, and that would oftentimes break. And Tony Buser's connector was designed to rotate freely once it was connected. So if you wanted to freeze it from rotation, you'd have to use two of them essentially. But that sort of connector has been a part of 3D printing design for a long time, and you'll see it. There's a company out there that actually has patented one of their particular clip, which I think is silly because it's really not that remarkably different than Tony Buser's clip. But it's a very common idea to have these flexible clips that go in and hold. But what I wanted to do was make one that, first of all, would print in every direction. Top and bottom, that's not that difficult. But what about the sides? How do we make it so it works on the sides? And what I came up with was turning the hole that we're connecting to 45 degrees. Top and bottom still aren't affected by that, but now the sides, I could do whatever I want, and everything's a gentle overhang and everything's a gentle underhang as it prints. But then I had to work on the clip, and the clip got tricky because you could insert it into that hole at 90 degrees to itself, and it needs to be able to work both directions. I didn't want people to be looking at this hole and going, well, which way do I put this clip in? It shouldn't matter. And so I had to make a clip that both would, because the clip has to print sitting down so that the layer lines go with the flex so that won't be a problem. This is very FFF dependent. People are like, can we print it on an SLA printer? You can print the blocks, but the clips really are FFF dependent. But the hole has got nibs on the end, so it will hold it if you turn it sideways. But then on the other side, it has those same nibs because it'll work in 90 degrees. So I had to put cavities on it so that the nibs wouldn't interfere with it. It took a little while to sort out the engineering here.
Yeah, but it seems to be a good result because I've seen you connect them and disconnect them before, and they work. I mean, they work great, right?
They work pretty good. You do need to have some really good cooling for them to work very well. But I put enough slop in the tolerances of printed blocks that it will work. Even with a bad 3D printer, it will function. It may not function as well as a well-calibrated 3D printer, but it will function. So you can have a garbage 3D printer, and maybe those nibs don't work as well because your cooling's garbage. And in fact, I've got one right here where the cooling fan died on it, and the holes just don't hold as well. But it does work. It does function. So it's... Yeah, I'm kind of proud of it. I did a good job with it, I think. I don't know, not to toot my own horn. I guess that's what I'm here for, toot my own horn. I did awesome.
If you don't toot your own horn, I'll just toot it for you. There's no worries about that.
And you can actually download the base printed blocks. I released those for free, and so you can try printing them out and connecting them and seeing if your printer works with them, which any decently calibrated 3D printer... And even a poorly calibrated... I've met very few 3D printers where it doesn't work. And they are garbage 3D printers. So any printer that is better than garbage will work with them. But you can go download them right now. They're on Thingiverse, they're on Pinshape, they're on My Mini Factory. And those are just the base blocks. But if you want the fancy tanks and guns... and I'm actually putting a laser holder on the head of a shark right now. If you want those... back to Kickstarter and pick them up on my store.
And again, people, even if they're not in a position to back the Kickstarter, should at least go check out the page because it's pretty interesting. The amount of work that you're putting into this is quite apparent. And on top of that, if you go look on your YouTube channel, there's a whole host of live streams of you modeling these things.
Yeah, well, I figured live streams would be cheap and easy content, and it would be fun engagement with my audience, and they have largely influenced the my brain is shutting down. The direction of the models. Like I'll be doing a model or something, and they're like, "Ooh, hey, you should change it so it's like this," and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so much better than what I was thinking. In fact, right now, like I said, I showed them a picture of a shark, and they were like, how come there's no hole on the top of the shark where we can mount a laser on the top of the frickin' shark? It's like, crap, we need sharks with frickin' lasers.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Who doesn't, right? Of course. So I'm gonna put a printed block hole on the head of the shark so that we can have sharks with frickin' lasers.
I'm looking forward to see that.
Yeah, it's going to be obscene, but a lot of fun. I mean, the other problem is there's going to be a big hole in the head of the shark. We'll see how it works.
Maybe there needs to be a plug piece so that if you don't want the laser, you can just plug it.
There are a number of caps and plates that you can just cap off things with, but the problem is I can't have it be something that you can't remove. You got to be able to get purchase on it with your fingers. So we played with that idea at the beginning. We played with a clip that clipped in and just kind of had a flat back instead of another clip on the other end, and it was impossible to get out. So no, I may just make a little spike for the top of our shark, and we'll have a shark with spikes on his head. Oh my goodness, if I put it in the right place, this could be horns. This could double for a new type of dragon head. Oh, so
or like
brilliant.
a sharkicorn.
Sharkticorn. Oh, it's not going to be in the middle, though. It can't be in the middle because of the way it was designed, but we could have a shark bicorn.
Okay, like a shoal, like a shark and a bull?
Yes.
Something like that.
I was going to say like a minotaur, but it would be sharkatar. That sounds terrible.
Yeah. We can also, if you use bull, you can also use a shao, which is a shark cow, to be all inclusive, right?
Yes, I mean inclusivity is important here.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at your files on Thingiverse right now, and I think I'm going to see if my printer can print them, because my parts cooling is non-existent, and my printer is a pretty trash tier one. It was the
put
cheapest
a desk fan on it.
one. Yeah, that's what Billy Rubin was saying, actually, that you can just put a desk fan. I do have some 120 mil like PC fans here, so maybe I can try that.
Yeah, you can power that one with a USB connector too. I've been in 3D printing now for almost 10 years, and my first 3D printer was an ABS only machine because 10 years ago PLA hadn't been developed. And when I started to experiment with PLA, I was like, crap, I need to get a fan. So I literally drilled holes in the case of my Replicator 1 to mount a huge fan on the front where you reach in to get the prints so that I could have part cooling. And boy, once I did that, my prints improved so much. But it doesn't have like nozzle cooling. It's just ambient fan, and it works great.
Nice. I actually got a I have a couple of sponsors for my YouTube channel, and Banggood is one of them. I pitched them a 3D printer upgrade series, and they agreed. So I have a box full of upgrades, but I have to design parts to install some of those things, and so it becomes a really weird thing on how much can I upgrade while still being able to print my upgrade installation parts.
Yes, because you don't want to. This is always a problem that we see in 3D printing. Somebody goes on to Facebook or messages me or something, and they're like, "My 3D printer won't print." Well, what kind of 3D printer is it? Well, it started out as an Ender 3, but I've made all sorts of changes to it. Well, did it print before you made all the changes to it? I don't know. I just went straight to upgrading. Okay, I can't help you, because I don't know if it worked at one point and stopped working, or if it never worked. Take it back to stock and see if it will print, People get upgrade happy, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with wanting to do upgrades, but what they learn very quickly is that you need to start from a place of knowing whether it works or not works, so you know whether the upgrade you're doing is a repair or, trying to make it step up from where every time you touch your 3D printer, it should be a step up from where it was. So you need to know where it was to begin with.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've got I don't know, I probably have about 500 hours of printing on my 3D printer at the moment.
What brand is it?
It is a Tronxy or Tronxy. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that.
I have no idea how to pronounce that, except for my general pronunciation of it is buy an Ender 3 instead. I have not had great experience with Tronxy's 3D prints, but they are great kits, and they're all great. I thought it would be a fun series, and I'm going to pitch this to you, and you could take it because I'm never going to do it. But it would be fun to start with the Tronxy 100. 3D print the parts to upgrade it to a bigger 3D printer, upgrade it to a bigger 3D printer, and then 3D print the parts with that 3D printer to make a bigger 3D printer until I've got a giant 3D printer,
Yeah, that's, I mean, a little bit what's happening. So it's an X3A, so it's very similar to the, I guess it's sort of
The
like
100.
yeah, I'm not sure what the 100 looks like, but quite possibly. It's 220 by 220 by like 400. It's a very tall machine, which I've never had to use the height. And anytime I've printed up pretty tall, it just starts like wobbling and stuff because it's not a very good machine. It doesn't have a parts cooler at all. But basically, I am printing parts for a fully custom built 3D printer at the moment on it. So it's pretty interesting that I only have one working 3D printer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm designing another 3D printer, and I'm going to be upgrading this 3D printer and then I'm going to be designing and printing parts for the new 3D printer while upgrading and printing parts for this 3D print. It's a mess. The whole thing
good luck with that.
Is a mess. Yeah. But I have printed enough to know what I don't like about it. And like one of the things, the extruder is terrible. It's a single gear, and I don't think in 2021 we should be messing with single gear extruders.
No, most 3D printers still are single gear. It's very, very rare, and it's usually only the high-end 3D printers that have dual gear 3D or dual gear extrusion machines. It's actually super uncommon even now for that to be the case. But you're right, it's better. So if you can do it, then do it. But don't think that's. I think, man, yeah, every 3D printer that I own, and especially the ones that I use regularly, are single gears.
Really? Because
Yeah.
I have a BMG extruder, which I'm just absolutely itching to put on.
Yeah, slap it on there.
So that one. Also, the bed leveling on this printer is with an inductive sensor, and it's very well tuned for the aluminum heated bed. So if I put like a glass surface
or something, yeah.
or even I've tried a magnetic, like one of those flexible ones, the sensor, it picks up way too low or way too high.
Well,
like for glass.
that's what the Z-Jog is for, so that you can tell it, adjust for, yes, you found the metal, but the actual build plate is up from that. You should be able to adjust that, I would think. It's not necessarily easy, but you can do it.
Yeah, not for glass, because it seems to need to get so close to the aluminum that you're already like pushing on the glass by the time before it even registers.
Yeah, it depends on the thickness of the glass, but that's true. But the magnetic, the build tack plate should be okay.
That one, yeah, I probably have a half-inch of clearance there when it detects. Awesome. And but I think I'm going to ditch the whole thing and going to go with BL Touch, so that I can use whatever surface I want.
Physical contact is so much better, and a few 3D printers that I've seen that actually put a sensor on the nozzle to somehow detect when the nozzle touches. I love those ones so much because you're never going to mistake. The nozzle touches and it goes, ooh, the nozzle touched. And that can be done one of two ways. I've seen it mostly done on Delta printers. Either the build plate has to remain where it is and have switches on it so that you can tell when the build plate gets depressed by the nozzle touching it, or the nozzle needs to be on a rocker that when it rocks up, it hits a sensor, but then your nozzle is kind of loose just a little bit, and I mean, it's not bad, but makes me a little bit nervous.
Yeah. I know that there are stepper drivers that have, current sensing.
Feedback, closed loop systems.
I wonder if that, I don't know if these are closed loop specifically, but they do check, like if you, like they have electronic end stop, so when they feel that the current goes up, they know that's the end. I wonder if it would be sensitive enough to capture the nozzle touching the bed.
Yeah, that's a very, very, very interesting question. So if your stepper driver can sense when it moves, then it's a closed loop system. Because really? Yeah, just the closed loop is an idea, and the idea is, I can tell it to move, or I can tell that it's been moved. And so just if it has that, now the problem is most stepper machines that we use can't sense their own movement, and they just move blindly, and we use end stops to take care of that. But servos are essentially a stepper motor. Not really, actually. It's not a stepper motor at all. It's usually a DC motor, but nevertheless, it's essentially a motor with a potentiometer attached to it with a geared relationship, so that whether the motor moves it or whether your hand moves it, it can sense its location. So servos are automatically a closed loop system, but you can do a similar closed loop system with a stepper driver. And I've seen people do it at Maker Faire, where they have like one stepper driver on one side, or one stepper motor on one side and one stepper motor on the other, and you turn the one and the other one reacts and turns too, or you turn the other and the other one reacts. And so it's capable. It can be done.
Oh yeah. Actually, I think you can still, at the moment, you can buy stepper motors that have the whole closed loop system built in, so you can use a dumb driver. Yes. And if the motor has missed a step, then it will correct itself.
Yes, that is a thing.
Which is pretty neat. I think that's the
amazing.
future of 3D printing, really, because missteps and stuff are kind of problematic.
No, missteps are a huge problem. But I also think filament detection is. I think that we need 3D printers with more sensors. The more sensors it has, the smarter it can and identify its own system, the more accurate it will be. The problem is every additional sensor that we add is a layer of complexity. Every additional sensor that we add increases the complexity of the entire system, and so it increases the price of it. And that price does not go on a linear scale. It goes up a lot faster than you would expect. So yeah, it's gonna be expensive.
Oh yeah, you're talking to automotive technician and professor, so I know exactly what you mean with the feature creep and the added sensors and the added complexity. Yeah. Like we're at a point where any given wire harness in a vehicle has over 50 conductors in it. So like it's becoming a thing. But I think 3D printers could use a little bit more of that. That's for sure.
For sure. I mean, we since Editor and Bowyer, since we started playing with the RepRap project, since we started trying to put 3D printers in our house, the goal has always been to strip it down as much as possible. And now we're kind of in this interesting kind of race where they get the price down as low as they can, and then they add features back to it, and then they get the price down, and then they add features to it. And so I think it's inevitable, but I think it will still require a conscious effort. In another area, not just in reliability, I feel like user interface needs to be given some major attention, because I'm tired of 3D printers being difficult for beginners to use, That
I can totally agree with, especially the LCD versions, not like the full color, like the high definition ones, but the ones
I call that a Bear Marlin interface, and
that's right.
I don't hate it. I do not hate the Bear Marlin interface, but I don't love it either. We need to give credit to the Marlin team. We need to give credit to Scott Lange for the development of it. We would not be where we were without it. But my goodness, I so many times I keep thinking I need to send him a copy of what's the name of the book? There it is, Designing Interfaces by Jennifer Tidwell. He needs to read this book cover to cover and then redesign the interface, because doggone, it could be better.
Yeah, absolutely. And like 2021, I understand that there's still like 3D printers that are very kit based, very enthusiast marketed, but I think that the consumer focused ones, the ones that the regular consumer is going to buy, I don't think there's any reason for them not to include something like an Octoprint style interface.
I think we can do
something you
better
could
than
just-
Octoprint. That's why I always promote the FlashForge Adventurer 3. That's why I was so impressed with the Toybox 3D printer. Toybox 3D printer has its flaws and its downside, but one downside that it does not have is in ease of use. It is the easiest to use 3D printer. It's the one that I'm testing all the printer blocks on because it's hard not to print with this printer. It's so easy to just go, yeah, hey, print this, and the 3D printer across my room goes, okay, springs to life, and spits out my print. Like, I love this thing, and I mean, it's a solid printer. It's a good machine. It's a cloud-based system. I say that with a sneer, but doggone, it's easy to use.
So let's say a listener is listening in and they want to join the 3D printing world. You have had the opportunity to review and use quite a variety of printers. Do you have a recommendation for beginners getting into it? Let's say at $300 US price point, and then maybe we can try another recommendation at the $600 price point.
So if we're going to start this conversation based around price, that changes the discussion. And I always try to take this discussion away from price as much as possible, because obviously if you're looking for the best price for a 3D printer, the answer is an Ender 3. Get the most Ender 3 that you can afford. So if you can afford the Pro, get the Pro. If you can afford get the most 3D printer that you can, or the most Ender 3 that you can. But if you're going for price, get an Ender 3 because it's well built, it's solid, it does a good job, but it's not the easiest to use system, and you will have to tinker with it. Now, I know a lot of people, when I say that, they're like, oh, I didn't have to tinker with my Ender 3. I mean, yeah, I upgraded this and that and that and the other thing, but I didn't have to tinker with it. I'm like, what? Are we talking the same language here, guys? Because everybody I know who has an Ender 3, and especially the ones who have a well-printing Ender 3, have tinkered with it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Tinkering good. I like tinkering, and I recommend it. But not everybody is up for tinkering. And if you tell somebody, yeah, you're going to have to tinker with it, I mean, I can't tell you how many people they bring in their Ender 3 into the makerspace, and they're like, I can't get it to print. And I'm like, okay, well, let me take a look at it, give it a shot, and nothing's sticking to the build plate. And I'm like, well, did you level the build plate? How do I do that? Well, okay, I think I found the problem. Like, it's a simple thing to do, but even that is too much for some people. And so we really have to address that fact, I think, that for beginners, even leveling the bed might be too much for some people. And if we can get away, the other response that I hear a lot of the time is, oh, you just need to find the community. People have answered this one out there, and you're right. You search for how to level an Ender 3 build plate, but finding the community should not be a requirement to being able to use your 3D printer. I mean, I'm not on a Canon user group, but I use Canon 3D printers. I'm not an Asus user group anywhere, but I use Asus computers. Actually, that's not what I'm talking to you on, but nevertheless, why? I mean, okay, people love the community. I get it. And people think that the community is the best part of 3D printing, and they don't want to give that up. I get it. But it should not be a fail point to being able to use this machine that you paid for, I think. That's my opinion.
No, I completely agree. A company that is selling a product, especially a company that's selling a product to the masses, which I would argue that Creality is doing now.
Absolutely.
I mean, if it's the top search on Amazon, you know that non-enthusiasts are buying it, and yes. I don't think it's fair to outsource your support to the community.
But on the other hand, they are putting 3D printers in the hands of people who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford it. So it's I agree with you, but I recognize the position that they're in. And while I want to live in a different world, I recognize the world that I live in.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It's very true. Okay, so for $300, get an Ender. The moment you can peak that number above $400, I say get a FlashForge Adventurer 3. It's a little bit smaller into build volume, but so much easier to use. And if you can get Wi-Fi printing up and if you can get it connected to your Wi-Fi, which admittedly is a pain in the neck for what's the word that I'm thinking of? You have to type in your password on the touchscreen, and the touchscreen is so small that they have to split the keyboard into two screens. So you're like flipping back and forth on the keyboard to type the password in. It's a pain in the neck. I'm not going to deny it. But once you do that, once you get it set up on Wi-Fi printing, oh my goodness, you have no idea how good life is until you can sit in your slicer, say, I want this, and hit print, and your printer jumps to life and prints it for you. It's just, so nice.
I'm wondering if I'm looking at the wrong thing, but I see the FlashForge 3D FFG ADV3 Adventure 3. Oh, light. Maybe the light version. It's $300.
Yes, they have a light version, and the light version is acceptable. The only thing that the light version doesn't have that you would actually miss is filament out detection. And usually filament out detection isn't a big deal for most people, and it usually isn't a big deal for me. The few times that I've used filament out detection, I used it on purpose. I was like, I'm just going to send these half full spools, and when it runs out, I'll have a striped print. But it's nice to have. But if you can live without it, the light is an excellent option. And yeah, it is only about $300. So yeah, go with FlashForge. It is a smaller build volume, but it's big enough for most of what you want to do.
And you can print printed blocks on it.
You can absolutely. So, yeah, printed blocks were plated. And if you look at the printed block downloads, you'll see that I already pre-plated a bunch of printed blocks for you. So you can say, hey, I want this. And in one print, you can get started with it. And that was a bit of revelation that came just before this Kickstarter. And because of the toy box, smallest 3D printer I've ever seen, has a 75 millimeter cubed build volume. It's tiny. And so I plated everything to fit within the toy box's build volume, but that means that you can fit like 4 of them on an Ender 3 if you wanted to, and you can fit, let's see, 150. So technically you could fit 4 of them on a FlashForge Adventurer 3 too. So plus that makes them not so big that when they, if you just print them one plate at a time, they're less likely to fail because they're not this huge print that you're waiting 2 days for the last 5 minutes to fail on. And I had an and then my brain shut down. So I'll come back to and later.
People know we're recording late at night, so they'll be forgetting. I
also yesterday morning went in for my last COVID shot, so I am 2 weeks away from being a god. I think that's how that works, anyways.
I wish. I'm still here up in Canada. I'm still too young to qualify for any of the COVID shots. So
yeah, they're kind of ridiculous. In my area, first of all, we didn't have much of a COVID lockdown. It just never happened. But then the other thing is, when we started getting vaccines, they were like, give them to all the old people, and all the old people were like, we don't care. And so they said, fine, we'll just give it to whoever. Just come get it. We got shots. Come get them. And so everybody in this area is already ready to go.
Nice. I am extremely jealous. With someone that is forced, like my work, I can't teach auto mechanics
without being
online.
In person.
Yeah. I can't tell the students to go like dismantle their neighbor's car or anything. So I am just absolutely hyped to get my shot. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it seems like it's going to be the next month or so.
Well, the other thing is, and we're straying into politics here, but we'll glance off it real quickly. So, like, the thing about COVID, and this has been driving me crazy since the beginning, is that the worst case scenario. I taught 7th grade math for a while, and I just got used to the idea that I was going to get sick. At first, I was all like, I got to clean all the surfaces and make sure, and then I was like, what am I? I'm spending too much time on this one, and what's the worst? I'll get a day off from teaching? Sign me up. So I just got used to the idea that I was going to be sick every once in a while and that was going to make me stronger. And while COVID has a tendency to target very specific demographics in a scary way, I'm not those demographics. So the worst that I'm going to get is a very bad cold, a very bad flu. This isn't tuberculosis. If this were tuberculosis, they would not have to ask us to put on a mask. This ain't the Black Death. If this were the Black Death, they wouldn't have to ask us to stay home. This is a bad flu, and it's a really bad flu, but it's a bad flu. I can understand the position of people who are like, yeah, I just don't care. I've run the numbers, I've looked at it, and I don't care. So if you were to say, screw it, I'm going to go teach, and if I get sick, I get sick, because you'll probably survive, that's not a position that I would argue with. Now, at the same time, if you're going, listen, I don't want to get sick, there may be some long-term effects of this that we don't understand, and I'm not saying it's polio, but could be, and you want to keep yourself safe, I can totally understand that too. Like, I will respect both positions in this argument. I don't think anybody in this case is in the wrong. Now, I think that there are some people who are into zealous, and, those people, I'm like, just calm your butts down, guys. Respect everybody.
Yeah, I'm a bit zealous when it comes to it. We've had, here in Canada, we've had some under 30s die of COVID already.
Ooh, that's no good.
So, yeah. And it's not just here, it's pretty much all around the world. And obviously some of the people are immunocompromised who've passed away.
Right.
But at the same time, that's why we take these lockdown measures, right? Is to protect the people who, again, are forced to go out and about.
It is a remarkable time. Like, we've had the Spanish flu, we've had flu season every year, and yet this is the time where we as a society said, no more death. We are going to inconvenience ourselves for the lives of other people. And darn, if that is not inspiring. We have progressed as a human species. Somewhat. Both. We got some ways to go, but we're getting there, and this is exciting.
Yeah, that's very true. And, there's some good things that have come from it, like mRNA vaccines are brand new.
Goodness, are we not living in the future? Holy smokes.
Yeah, the team that developed the mRNA vaccine, they're saying that AIDS and cancer are next because in theory, they can't prove it yet, obviously, but in theory, the same method can be used to target HIV/AIDS and cancer. So, I'm just looking forward to the future at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pumped. I'm excited for what we have unlocked with this particular, disaster. Talk about good news coming from bad. It was, love it. Love it. But, okay, now we're glancing back off. What are we going to talk about next?
Well, let's go in. Do you have sort of like a hall of fame for 3D printers that you've used or tested that you just absolutely love? And maybe price is not an object. Maybe you just want to shout out some companies that have done a good job at their machines.
The Raise 3D, it's actually now the Pro 2 Plus. This 3D printer can 3D print a small child. It's massive. And it's well built. It's got one of the most beautiful user interfaces you will ever see. You can send prints to it over Wi-Fi. Their slicer, Idea Maker, you can use Idea Maker for any slicer. You could try it out today. It's a great slicer. It's very powerful. It's very customizable and very easy to use. Like, they hit it out of the park with this one. It's $6,000, but it's very, very cool. If you are ever in a public space and they're like, hey, we have money that we need to blow for a public use 3D printer, absolutely Raise 3D printer, definitely recommended.
It looks quite like the archetypical 3D printer that you'd probably see in some sort of sci-fi movie in the not too distant future. It definitely looks like that kind of printer to me.
Now, the one downside to it, and this is not its fault, But this year in 2020, I got to test out at least two IDEX 3D printers. The JG Maker Artist D and the FlashForge Creator Max 2 or the FlashForge Creator Pro 2. They're both the same. They're just sold from different areas. Well, they're not exactly the same, but they're both IDEX. And if you got two nozzles, man, I'm telling you, IDEX is the way to go to get two materials into your print. But I'm excited. I mean, I think IDEX is something exciting that we need to explore more as a community. But I also think that the next step is a tool changer. And I can't wait to see somebody making a tool changer possible.
Yeah, there's a few YouTubers actually that have sort of semi-working prototypes. Obviously, it's not off the top of my head. I'd have to look them up. But the
all of
concept
those words
is fantastic.
are 100% true. Semi-working prototypes. Yeah, it's we've definitely proved the concept, but there's a lot that we still need to figure out. The cool thing about tool changers is that essentially what we're doing is we're putting a claw on a robot arm so it can grab the different tool heads and use it like a very precise robot arm, which is essentially what it is. But that means that at the beginning of every print, or at the beginning of every change, it goes over and checks the nozzle location, and it goes, oh, I grabbed the nozzle a little bit too high. Well, let me just adjust it in software while I print this layer. So all of these things, bed leveling, flow rate, all of these things shift from being hardware problems to software problems with this one. And that shifts it away from the user having to deal with it and towards the machine dealing with it for you. And that's exciting to me. I also am looking forward to when we have tool changers, somebody taking the XYZ DaVinci color printer and duplicating its technology with a tool changer head, because I think that would be sexy. Full color 3D prints that you don't have to paint or anything. Oh, yes, please. Sign me up. XYZ Printing actually just released a new ink and filament combination that they say is fixing the problems that they had with the previous batch. So I may be back to trying them out sometime.
I've just seen something very recently where there was like filament that got fed into like a sort of like a pre-chamber, and it was cut and fused with a different color filament to make
the palette 3D printer.
And that's what that is. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a 3D printer. It's the palette add-on. There's also, I think a better one is the Chameleon. The palette is exciting, but because it relies on fusing the ends of the filament, if you have two filaments that are unlike, it's possible that you may not fuse properly. And the biggest problem with the palette, and I've used a palette before, I don't like them. They break too often. They're unreliable. They're a beautiful, well-engineered piece of engineering. That was me saying engineering too many times in one sentence. They're beautiful. They're well-engineered, but they're not reliable. And that to me is a huge, like, I just want to 3D print stuff. I don't want to fight with the technology. I know a lot of people like to fight with the technology, and if that's your thing, it's not my thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And so, speaking of fighting with stuff, do you have a sort of like, a 3D printer of shame that you'd like to call out a company for just doing it very wrong and still selling it? I've seen you recently review a printer negatively. Maybe you have an even worse
Star
one.
A got absolutely destroyed. The TiVo Tornado was just a bad experience over and over again. And the TiVo people absolutely handled that situation wrong, because when I contacted them and said, hey, you got this problem, that problem, and they were like, well, we're not going to fix it. Like, your customers are going to have a problem. They're like, we'll just run a flash sale and move another 100 units. Whew, guys, that was the wrong answer. So, yeah, TiVo's on my short list of people I'm not happy with. ANET, okay, I recently reviewed the ANET ET4, and I didn't mention it in the video that I reviewed it because I couldn't get the darn thing to work. They sent me a broken unit, and I tried to fix it, and I tried to help them because ANET has been the scapegoat of the 3D printing community for, their 3D printers bursting into flames, and I wanted to give them a chance at redemption. I wanted to give them a chance at getting it right, and they didn't. And I would still give them another chance. I would give TiVo another chance. I would give Celpic another chance. Even in the Celpic Star A, I didn't end with these people are bad, must not. I was like, just if you see them selling something again, double and triple check, make sure that they're not selling you a myth, because I don't want to burn any particular bridges. I don't want to be the one, but doggone it, those angry confrontational videos get the views every time. People love them.
That's very true. Drama is there's two things that I find get views. One is calling out someone or something or a company, and the other one is just saying absolutely the wrong information. I think there's no better way to get people to interact with your channel than to just say something completely false.
The other one is to do two of those at once and call out a 3D printer that you actually don't call out, but the thumbnail says that you did, and dare to bring up race and gender in that same video. So yeah, I got a video there that's by far one of my best performing videos, and I still field comments on it to this day. But I stuck my foot in that one. I'll admit it.
Yeah, it just is what it is, right? It has to exist for what it is, and if you ever really change your mind on whatever you said. I've watched the video. I don't remember what the gist was.
It was the Don't Buy a Prusa or Ender 3 video. And what I essentially said was, listen, do buy an Ender 3. If in our conversation, I said, yeah, if price is the thing, you're going to buy an Ender 3 because Ender 3's thing is price. Prusas are amazing tinkering machines. I've got a Prusa half built. It's been half built for a month. I need to get off my butt and finish building this thing, but it's a lot of work to build it, and I just don't have the desire to tinker that much with it, so it's sitting there half built. If that's not what you want, then don't buy those printers. Now, mind you, once you get your Ender 3 tinkered with, it prints great. Once you get your Prusa built, it prints great. It prints fantastic, possibly the best of any other printer out there. But what good is a 3D printer that you haven't built, right?
Yep, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah, which is why Adventure 3, my first recommendation, because it comes pre-assembled. You can start printing on it that day. You don't even have to level the build. Well, you do have to level the build plate a little bit, but they walk you through it. They make it good and easy to do. They think about the user experience, and they've done a great job with that. So, yeah, that's why that's my number one recommended 3D printer. Go get a FlashForge. Now, a lot of the community is like, oh, I don't want to have a 3D printer that actually works. I want to tinker with stuff. Well, then this suggestion isn't for you. This suggestion is for everybody else who hasn't gotten into 3D printer because they can't level their Ender 3's build plate,
Very valid. Well, if I'm looking at the X3A, I made build videos for mine, and I think it's like 4 hours of building. It's like a lot of build before your first print, and if you buy a kit or a disassembled printer.
Yeah, the Tron XY X3A, yeah. Again, yeah, man, I would not buy that. What's its build volume? 220? Buy an Ender 3, okay? 2 bolts, you're done.
Yeah, I bought mine in 2017, 2018.
Okay, 2017, that was pretty good stuff.
Yeah, and you know what? I set off to buy the cheapest 3D printer I could find that was all metal. So it was between It was between the TiVo Tarantula and the Tronix Y X3A at the time, and I think the Tarantula was something like $20 Canadian more expensive. So, I went literally for the cheapest printer, and I kind of don't regret my decision, because even though this is a cheap printer that took me a long time to put together, I have printed over 500 hours worth of stuff on it. Like it works just fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's don't regret. Don't if you get it to the point where it's working, you have no reason to regret. And if you don't get it to the point where it's working, just buckle down and do it. This is worth it. This hobby that we do is absolutely worth it. My whole point is you don't necessarily have to do that. But I agree with people who are like, oh, that, I learned so much and it was so enriching to do. Yes, 100%. Absolutely, you learn a whole lot doing it, and you also learn grit and determination. These are valuable things to learn. So I don't begrudge anybody saying that this is a good choice. It's true. It is a good choice. I also think there are better choices, but it's good a choice.
Oh yeah, for sure. And obviously everybody's different. Everybody's needs are different.
Yes.
Like if I talk to Fake It, Make It and Fake It, or Fake It and Make It, I never remember
Joel.
her YouTube channel.
Oh no, that's
Clarissa.
Joel is Clarissa. Clarissa is Fake It, Make It. Joel, or not Joel. Joe is Breaks and Makes. Yeah,
and Breaks and Makes. Yeah, but Clarissa, she said, look, I don't want to tinker. I just need a 3D printer. It doesn't even have to be that big. So she has a Prusa Mini, and she's perfectly happy with that thing.
Yeah, they did good with the Prusa Mini.
Yeah, whereas with me, like, I was literally, like, I have a YouTube channel. There's a little bit of, if I have to tinker with stuff, it just makes more content.
That's more content.
I don't really, like, I don't mind. So that's why I went with and especially back then, oh my God, were the margins ever thin on my YouTube channel? I mean, I'm pretty sure I went back to university during that time, so I had no money, right? So, yeah, it was, there's a place for everything, really. But I find it really interesting when I ask people like you or Billy Rubin to make printer suggestions, because there are a lot of people, including in my audience, that they don't know what to buy and they don't know what to look for in a 3D printer. It's
certainly the most common question that people ask, because there are so many options, which, let's be clear, I think is awesome. I think it's awesome that we are living in an age where we have a glut of options. It went from, 8 years ago, the only option being either source it yourself or buy a MakerBot, to MakerBot's not even in the picture anymore. And we've got options coming out of our ears to choose from. I will admit that it hasn't moved as fast as I had hoped and wanted to, but like I said, with 3D printers like the Adventurer 3, the Toy Box 3D printer, new 3D printers that are coming out, I think we're starting to see the needle move on having a 3D printer that is one day like a microwave, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, do you think there's anything that's going to be lower priced than the Toy Box? Because the Toy Box seems to be sort of like on that bare minimum 3D printer size there. It's like I don't
lower
see how
price,
you get much.
Because I don't think the Toy Box is particularly low price. You can buy the 3D printer that they based the Toy Box off of for like $200, like the high end of, or just under $200. I don't remember what it was called, but it's based on another design that they basically ripped out the guts, added a new user interface, covered up the screen on, or covered up the SD card on, and made their own. But because it uses that web interface, The printer that it was based on was like $200, but it is a very, very small 3D printer. Now, I hear tell that they're working on a new one, but all right, Toy Box people, I love you guys. I hope that somebody rips them off and makes an offline version. I want a 3D printer that is easy to use, as easy to use as the Toy Box, but doesn't require me using their web service, because one day the money's going to run out. One day they're going to not be able to sell any more 3D printers, and when that happens, the web service is going to shut down, and everybody who bought one of those 3D printers is no longer going to have access to their 3D printer. This thing doesn't have an offline option. So I think that right now, while they are still a thing, if you are developing 3D printers, you should absolutely get a Toy Box and use it and go, ooh, how am I going to steal this idea? Because we need more of this. This is what everybody else is looking for.
Yeah, and that online stuff, I am in total agreement with you. I think, well, like the Nest thermostats, the company still exists and they're still making new products, but they've like obsoleted their old, like their first few products that they put out, which are online only. They decided to just pull the plug on those, and they said, if you want to keep using it, you got to buy a new one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lawsuit right now because Apple is telling people that, yes, you can buy movies with us, and somebody's going, does that mean that we get to keep them if you guys decide that we don't get to keep them?
No.
Well, actually, in the case of Apple, you can download the movies at 1080p resolution, and you can keep that file. They're not going to make you delete that file. So in the case of Apple, actually, you can. But people are worried about that. People are definitely worried about that. There needs to be an end-of-life plan for this. And, I mean, the Toy Box is here, can connect to my Wi-Fi, so why can't I have a slicer like the Flashprint slicer? The Flashprint slicer recently made a change to their slicer that it scans your local network for flash-forward 3D printers and goes, oh, do you want me to upload it to this one that I found on your network? And I'm like, yes, please, thank you. Don't make me go hunt down the IP address for it. Thank you. It's so good, so nice.
That is pretty nice.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Which is why every time they send me, like the Creator Max 2 did not have Wi-Fi. And I contacted them, and I'm like, you guys have mastered Wi-Fi. Why isn't it on this machine? Well, we are deciding that maybe Wi-Fi isn't where we want to go with this one. Shut up and go with Wi-Fi, man.
Yeah, fewer barriers would be better, right?
Absolutely.
It seems pretty obvious to me.
Yeah. The SD card shuffle is fine, but if I don't have to, I don't want to.
Yeah, that's another thing my Tron XY is getting as an upgrade. It's getting a 32-bit board with Wi-Fi, so...
Are you getting the what's that one called? My brain just shut down.
It is an SKR 1.4, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the same one that's in the Kaiwu 3D. And that is an excellent board. Does it have a color user interface screen on it?
Yes, it's a 1.3 is the one they sent me, actually. So SKR 1.3 with the touchscreen and the Wi-Fi and the whole.
So the
whole
downside to that one is that you have to manually connect to it with your slicer. So Cura doesn't scan your network and say, "Oh, hey, let me just connect to this printer." So if your printer drifts on the Wi-Fi, you need to go hunt down the IP address for it again.
Interesting.
It's not a big deal, but it's a thing.
Yeah, I guess I'll take a look at it, but it's going to be a much needed upgrade, and it'll come with silent stepper drivers too. It has a TMC 2130s, so yeah, I'm going from the A4988, I think the original like mass-produced stepper driver, and going up to the TMCs, so it's going to be very nice.
Yeah, that sounds like that. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get yourself a sponsor, I definitely recommend it. That's for sure.
Where would I ever get a sponsor? I again, that's a tinkering project, though. And so, like, for you, great. Keep doing that. For me, I'll look for a solution that comes with all that stuff in the box and pay a little extra for it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, like, and again, the cost of including it in the box, like in the first place,
Right.
is lower than upgrading it after, anyways. So the company
with the economy of scale and stuff like that.
Yeah, and so the company can integrate it, and they can pocket the difference in profit if they wanted to, and then develop new stuff with that profit. Like, does make sense. But hey, it's actually getting a little bit late, so I have a question I want to ask you.
Turning into a pumpkin. Let's.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I have a question I ask all my guests, and I'd like to get through that with you, if you don't mind. So the question goes: you get a government grant to start the business of your dreams. Government grant because it just think unlimited funds, and the business does not have to be profitable, but it does have to provide a service or a product. What kind of business do you start?
Has to provide a service or product. Well, I can be very creative with the words service and product.
Hey, it's your podcast appearance. You go nuts.
Yeah. I would build a set. I would think somewhere between, just a PBS maker show, essentially. A show that combines art and making, that can reach a less affluent audience to get them into the idea of making and creating, where we build simple and complex projects and teach and inspire people. So I would have the ultimate maker space, that in my mind I'm calling the hexagon, because it's basically a 6-sided set where one side is a 3D printing lab and one side is a woodworking lab and one side is an mold making, silicon mold making lab, and one side, so I've got a camera in the middle that can swivel between these different sets to have just a simple workflow, and of course hire crew and stuff like that, get somebody else to edit my videos for me, and make a show to teach and inspire making on public broadcasting.
I feel like this is something that Adam Savage would be down to produce.
Yes.
I have this dream, like when I started the podcast, I set some goals for myself, and I have one that's like unobtainium, which is to have Adam Savage on the podcast. But so I like to pretend that he listens. And so, Adam, if you're listening, contact 3D Printing Professor, make it so.
Yeah, no, that would be way cool. The problem that I see with this is, one, I don't want to move to California. I'd want this to be filmed here in southern Utah because I like it here. And two, if Adam Savage were like, oh yeah, I'm going to jump on and do this thing with you, then we will have 2 old white guys on one show. And I want a little bit more of a diverse cast. Not that I don't want Adam Savage, but if it came down to being me or Adam Savage on the show, I'm afraid I would end up being the editor. Oh, no.
You know what? You could just be, a co-producer. You could be part of the creative team, and you can hire out the editing.
Yeah. Or I'll be the clown. I'll be the silent clown portion. I'll be the Mr. Oh, crud. Who was the guy on the Elmo TV show, Elmo's World Shorts? Mr. Noodle.
Idea.
Mr. Noodle.
Mr. Noodle. That's I think I might be either too old or too young for that one.
Well, if or don't have kids yet, so
don't have kids ever. I think that's my life plan.
There was a funny story because Mr. Noodle is he's actually a famous comedian, but he plays this mute, clown going around and doing stuff, and he does things constantly wrong, so that the kids' voices watching and go, no, Mr. Noodle, do it this way. No, Mr. Noodle, do it this way. That's Mr. Noodle's bit. And I heard one time this guy talking about in the apartment complex where he lived, like they could only pick up like 2 channels, and one of them was PBS. And so if you wanted to watch something, you friggin' watched Elmo's World. And he's sitting here with Mr. Noodle on the TV doing whatever he's doing, and Mr. Noodle's, screwing stuff up, and he's like, this is torture. Why am I doing that? Just as he's about to shut it off, one of his neighbors upstairs screams, "Come on, Mr. Noodle, get it together." He's like, oh, I'm not alone.
Wow. Man. Kids shows. I'm guessing you have kids then?
I have 6 children. My oldest is 17 and my youngest is 4.
Man, you've been busy.
Yes, indeed. And I love them all. And just as I was like, oh, I need to get my kids onto the YouTube channel, I need to do more with them. That's when YouTube was like, the whole are your videos made for kids, and do a kids appear in your video? And I'm like going, well, yeah, crap.
That becomes, which is weird because you are their guardian, their legal guardian.
Yes.
And so you could sign off for their appearance, but it's not enough for YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that people have to keep in mind is that YouTube is not reality. YouTube is not legality. YouTube is YouTube. If we're going to get strictly legal here, YouTube is not in compliance with what was the Children's Protection Act that they did this whole thing about, because they're still gathering information on 13-year-olds and younger. You think that Google can't tell that, hey, this person watching these videos is under 13, send them videos for toy ads? Like, they can still figure that out. They don't need you to tell them that you're under 13 to know that they need to target you with under 13 ads. And they haven't stopped gathering that information, but they tried to put the burden of dealing with this on the content creators and said, see, that's good enough. And everybody in the government was like, listen, this is not... we don't do this very often. This is a rare thing. You do fine, whatever. They kind of, I think they should have pushed harder, but that's not the game that they play.
Yeah, shit goes downhill, and we're at the bottom.
We are at the bottom. Well, it's also, I recently in my Toy Box ad. Actually, I don't get the ad revenue for that one because I did that little I Wish parody karaoke in it, and I found a version of I Wish that was just the music that somebody had recreated that got claimed by the person who had I Wish, and I disputed that claim, and they automatically sent it back to me and said, nope, we're still going to take the revenue. And I'm like, no, this is parody, this is good, you shouldn't be able to stop me on this. But if I contest it a second time and they kick it back to me, that video would have been taken down and I would have had a strike on my account. And I'm going, you know what? They can have the revenue. They can have the 400 views on my video. Okay, just fine, whatever. But it's definitely affecting the things that I'm making, or the videos that I'm making, because I'm not going to do that again. Yeah,
and it's a tough, it's a tough place for YouTube to put themselves because they are a private company. Mm-hmm. They are, they're not beholden to anyone but their shareholders, and really they're just doing as little as possible basically to comply with the laws. And if you have a legitimate case for fair use, YouTube says, well, look, we decided the safe way that we can't get sued. Exactly. But now your recourse is to take civil litigation into your own hands.
Exactly. And at this point, in order to get third party, looking into this thing, I would have to sue them. I would have to lawyer up. That's not going to happen. Not for my side of a channel. I just let them have that one. It was still a funny gag, so I left it in. I wasn't gonna remove it. I mean, I still think it was. I spent weeks writing that in my head just because I thought it was going to be funny, and doggone it was still funny. So screw it, they can have it. It was funny.
So, Joe, tell the viewers where they can find you. Where should they go? Where should they look?
My website is 3dpprofessor.com, and that is where you can go to get, I make blog posts for every one of my videos, so that'll link you to them. From there, you can get to my YouTube channel. From there, you can buy 3D models from past Kickstarters. From there, you can so that's the central hub right there. Unfortunately, my YouTube channel got grandfathered in before they were doing custom URLs, so there is no good custom URL for my YouTube channel, and I've tried to fix that, and I just can't. So if you search for 3D Printing Professor on YouTube, you'll find me. But if you go to 3dpprofessor.com, you'll find me faster. So do that. Also, if you want to check out the current Kickstarter, and this link will, because it's I own the URL, and I can point it wherever I want, printablock.com, no C in block, so printablok, because that URL was available, is where you can go for the current Kickstarter while it's running, and when it's done, the link to my shop that has all the printer blocks if you want to check it out. So check it out, and yeah, that's it. Keep it simple.
You also have a popping Discord community, if I may shill you a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I keep on forgetting that I have that. But I'm there every day, and I'm talking to people. It's not, I don't know, would you describe it as popping? It's on a slow simmer, but that's what makes me comfortable. There are other 3D printing communities that are moving faster, and you'll ask a question, and it'll be buried, by the time you go to the bathroom or something. But this one, you ask a question, and we got some very good, very smart people who will jump in. So yeah, the link can be found in any one of my videos, and I should put a link on my blogger. I should do that. I should put a link on my blog. I will do that after this. So if you go to 3dpprofessor.com, there will be a link at the top that says Discord, and that'll be an avenue for getting there.
And all of the relevant links, of course, will be in the background of this video on YouTube, in the video description on YouTube, and in the show notes, anywhere where you get your podcasts. Joe, thank you so much for joining me today. I know there was a little bit of a cluster getting this done tonight, but I thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to have a chat.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about this. Thank you so much.
And for the listeners, I hope you guys will, at the very least, go to the 3D Printing Professor's YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. It means a lot to YouTube creators. It means a lot more than the effort you're going to put to hitting that subscribe button. So make sure you do that, and I hope to catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for listening.
Bye.